Welcome, and thanks for joining me on this intrepid journey as we explore and uncover mysterious and elusive tales of some of the world's most famous, lost and forgotten treasures. This episode is dedicated to the late legendary English football champion, Bobby Charlton, who recently departed on the 21st of October, 2023. His legend will live on, and his memory will now reside in the hearts and minds of those who recall his exceptional talents. Football talents which played part in England claiming victory at the 1966 Football World Cup. May his soul rest in peace in the hands of the football gods, and, out of respect, will you all join me for a minute of silence to remember the legend Bobby Charlton before we begin the episode? Thank you. In this episode, we'll be stepping onto a meticulously mowed green pitch, one that attracts the most active and loyal sports fans from around the world. A global stage that finds itself home to a spherical object, one that is booted, shuffled and passed up and down its 105 by 68 metre boundaries. The boundaries of which are commonplace for legendary athletes who leap, sprint and dive across its pale and dark green striped turf as they swiftly manoeuvre a synthetic leather ball while navigating through waves of elite defenders and attackers alike, while the roar of the fanatic onlookers vocalise their support. The primary objective of the game, to strike the spherical projectile past a gatekeeper, a position who guards the posts that stand 8 feet apart at opposing ends of the pitch. The sole purpose of the game, to propel a ball past the guardian that stands ready at the posts, then crossing the ball over a thick white painted line to penetrate and stretch the back of the white polyethylene woven net that adorns the solid galvanized steel, powder-coated posts. The energy-fueled sport which many of us are intimately familiar, a colossal sporting event that inspires and attracts lifelong followers, through to the youngest of fans, captivating many at the heart and soul of the action, with many of whom only dream of someday donning the jersey of their favourite team to caress the velvety turf with vividly coloured studded boots. A sport which entertains its audience from friendly tournaments to professional competitions that stretch from Saturday morning junior kickabouts to the elite professional level which graces stadiums and television screens, broadcasting its appeal across multiple continents. A typical UK season running between the months from August to May. Historic accounts of this highly competitive sport go as far back as the 2nd century BC, in the 2nd century taking place in China, the game falling under the title Cuju, a sport played with a leather round ball, likely comprised of stitched leather and delicate feathers within its interior, a game which involved kicking a ball within the area of a square. The popular game, later modified, its infectious allure spreading to the far reaches of Japan, where it was practiced under ceremonial conditions by the name Kimari. Some of the first documented examples of the game noted as having a ball made out of a rock, occurring in old Mesoamerican cultures, a game called chitali by the Aztecs. It is also noted in history as a recreational activity practiced by the ancient Greeks, played with a ball made with shreds of leather, which shrouded a mass of fine strands of hair. Furthermore, onward to the mighty Roman Empire, who would eventually bring football to Britannica, and there is even suggestion that this ball-orientated sport may have even been played much earlier according to football history, as it is told that white immigrants in the early 1800s observed a game which also primarily involved kicking, named Manguk, celebrated by the ancient Australian Aboriginal people, who also used a ball constructed by encapsulating roots and leaves. Glancing forward, the stories of a spherical ball-centered sport which emerge tell of the game being created in England in the 12th century, where the recreational activity of kicking a ball was said to have taken place on meadows and roads throughout England. It is also mentioned that as well as kicking, this early form of the English version of the game also involved punching the ball with a closed fist, as well as noted to have been a much more violent form of the game than we experience today, with accounts of the game taking place with large groups of people, spanning over vast areas with no real set boundaries. The sport is also said to have caused much destruction to English towns and villages, in some cases even resulting in death for the participants. The events of which led to the game being forbidden for a period of time, before returning to the streets of London in the 17th century, where the game experienced an awakening. It would, however, see another era of becoming a forbidden game in 1835. However, this period would be short-lived, with its evolution to a more respectful game, as it found itself becoming established as a primary recreational activity in English schools. Now that we've heard the thud of foot-to-ball contact and taken a long stride back to the inception of this great game we now know as modern football, a sport which many European nations have adopted as their staple of entertainment, let's look beyond the posts and attempt to go in search of a treasure that mysteriously disappeared without trace, leaving its caretakers baffled and disturbed as to its whereabouts. And with that said, let's embark on this cryptic and elusive story together. The Jules Remit Trophy.
He's approaching the post! It's a goal!
As far as national treasures go, for England and other European countries, football is almost certainly very near the top of the treasured pastimes list, and as well as the FA Cup and the Premier League, there truly is no greater sporting accomplishment than to grip the hugely celebrated Football World Cup, an accolade which marks the grit, perseverance and unity of a team of victorious football champions, highly skilled athletes who have endured and overcome enormous physical challenges that push the boundaries of human skill, tact and athletic stamina. Now, with such incredible accomplishments comes with it material treasure, worthy not only of its champions, but the significant recognition of what it truly takes to grip and hold such an elite prize. And what prize more significant can one get than a trophy that celebrates gold, or at least the illusion of it, the likes of such is prized to many exceptional athletes in almost all major platforms of competition. However, as with all origin stories, as time passes, things aren't always as they seem, and in the case of the Jules Remit Trophy, it too has its own tale to tell. Jules Remit, born 14th of October 1873, a revered and respected man, considered the longest-serving president at FIFA, one who graced the position for 33 years, as well as serving as the French Football Federation president between 1919 and 1942. In 1929, Jules Rimet passed a vote to initiate the World Cup competition. The following year, in 1930, the Football World Cup commenced in Uruguay for the inaugural FIFA World Cup.
He's approaching the post. It's a goal!
The spectacular original prize trophy was coined Victory, known simply as the World Cup, or Coupe du Monde, designed by French sculptor Abel Lafleur, constructed of gold-plated sterling silver and a lapis lazuli base. Its image depicting the winged Greek goddess of victory, holding up a decagonal cup with raised arms. The original trophy stood at a height of 35 centimetres, 13.7 inches, with a diameter of 13 centimetres, 5.1 inches, and weighed 3.8 kilograms, 8.4 pounds. The Victory Prize trophy travelled alongside Jules Rimet himself, as well as the footballers representing France, Romania and Belgium, safely stowed away aboard the Conte Verde, the vessel which sailed from southeast of Nice in June of early 1930, en route to Uruguay, who coincidentally were the first hosts and victors of the 1930 inaugural World Cup. Jules Rimet presenting the Uruguayan winners with the prized Victory Trophy, handing it over to Raul Jude, who at the time was the president of the Uruguayan Football Association.
He's approaching the post. It's a goal!
In 1934, the trophy travelled under lock and key toward Italy for the second World Cup competition, which took place between May 27 and June 10. It's important to note that the 1934 World Cup was the first event in which participant teams were required to qualify in order to take part in the tournament, and of the 32 football nations which entered, only 16 would go through to qualify in the becoming legendary competition. And as things would have it, the trend of hosting nations winning the World Cup would continue. For the time being at least, Italy, the second World Cup hosts, outperforming the other nations to clutch the World Cup Victory Trophy of 1934. Onward to 1938, the FIFA World Cup, now in its third instalment, held this time in France between June 4 and June 19, of which Italy defended its World Cup title, beating Hungary 4-2 in the competition final, again claiming the spoils of victory. Now, as with most tales of treasure, as time would have it, European hostilities and conflict would go on to disrupt the world, and inevitably, the World Cup tournament, with the onset of World War II about to erupt, during which time the trophy was guarded by the 1938 victors, Italy. The trophy, at the request of Ottorino Barassi, the Italian vice president of FIFA and president of the FIGC, would have the trophy secretly relocated, smuggling it from its safe haven in a bank vault in Rome and unsuspectingly hiding it within a shoebox beneath his bed. The theory and intention of preventing the Nazis from ever acquiring it. And while the Nazis had their moment to sweep Barassi's apartment in an attempt to acquire the legendary trophy, they were unsuccessful and completely missed their target, forgetting to check under the bed. And it was there the trophy remained beneath the bed springs, out of sight, gathering dust, until its next appearance. But for now, who knew when or where that would be?
He's approaching the post! It's a goal!
As the war raged on through the 1940s, eventually it slowed to a standstill in 1945. Then 1 year on, after World War II had ceased, in 1946, the World Cup trophy, coined Victory, was renamed in honour of FIFA president Jules Rimet. The World Cup, now known as the Jules Rimet Trophy.
He's approaching the post! It's a goal!
With the war now seemingly behind the world, the great tournament sought to resume its legendary status, jump-starting the competition with the 1950 World Cup, which for the first time set the stage for inclusion of British participants after British teams had withdrawn from FIFA in 1920, due in part to their unwillingness to compete against nations Britain had previously been at war with, as well to protest against foreign influence in football. However, upon receiving invitation by FIFA, Britain rejoined in 1946. In 1954, the competition moved to Switzerland, the first event to be televised, a tournament which saw West Germany as the victors, claiming their first title in the competition. Then in 1958, the World Cup was held in Sweden, a monumentous event which sparked a new world tradition. And not just for football, with Brazil taking claim of the legendary Jules Remit trophy. It was there at the Cup's presentation, Brazilian captain Hilderaldo Bellini heard photographers vocalizing requests for a better view of the trophy. And it was in that moment that Bellini, overhearing the media request, launched the trophy high up into the air, so to accommodate the photographers' requests. And, as things would have it, to this day, every trophy-bearing captain who has claimed victory at the World Cup has ever since replicated the victorious taunt, now widely recognised as the victory pose.
He's approaching the post. It's a goal!
Now in 1962, the tournament found itself hosted in Chile, Brazil going on to defend the legendary trophy yet again, claiming the title of the first nation to win the World Cup outside their home continent, and for the second consecutive time, Brazil maintaining their status as the Football World Cup victors, retaining the Jules Rimet trophy. Travelling next to the monumentous World Cup of 1966, hosted by none other than England, who were the first of nations to activate an impressive marketing campaign featuring an official brand for the event as well as Willie, a friendly-natured lion mascot, in a pioneering effort to commemorate the legendary competition.
He's approaching the post. It's a goal!
Despite the Jules Rimet trophy being stolen in the run-up to the World Cup from a public exhibition in Westminster Central Hall, the gangster brother thieves were later identified as Sydney and Reg Cougarlier. However, the thrill-seeking thieves must have had second thoughts concerning their disgraceful actions, as the trophy was retrieved wrapped in newspaper beneath a hedge on a South London street by a mongrel dog named Pickles.
Good boy.
So it would seem that karma hadn't had evil intent after all, at least for England, where at the closing World Cup match, Queen Elizabeth II presented the England victors with the Jules Rimet trophy, handing over the prize to the heroic English captain, Bobby Moore.
He's approaching the post. It's a goal!
A monumentous event one might relive should you be prepared to clutch a video game controller and wrestle the competition as you play through the rounds of FIFA 15, commanding every move of your favourite team's players who exhibit athletic skills such as strength, speed, heading and agility. In the 2015 release, one can even take on the heroic talents of Bobby Moore in an attempt to clutch the virtual trophy once more. Speaking of virtual, or the idea of it, the theft attempt event of 1966 also opened doors to taking more appropriate security measures in relation to the trophy. As the story goes, the Football Association took bold measures and had manufactured a replica of the Jules Rimet trophy for the explicit use at exhibitions, as to not take any further risk of the original finding its way to the smelter, or being bundled in chip shop newspaper and stuffed under a shaggy, overgrown hedge. As such, up until 1970, the England replica was used at events in place of the original, until the original was returned to FIFA for the following 1970 competition. From then on, it is said the replica was kept again discreetly under another bed, this time with the replica's creator, before later finding its way to auction in 1997, where it fetched a price tag of £254,500, snatched up by the one interested party who, strangely enough, was FIFA. Today, a loaned replica now stands on display in the English National Football Museum in Manchester.
He's approaching the post. It's a goal!
Now, forward to 1970, where the World Cup was held from May 31 to June 21, this time in Mexico, the first World Cup tournament to be held outside Europe and South America, where for the third time, Brazil at close of the tournament marched victoriously, gripping the trophy after the final clash. A significant moment for the Jules Remit trophy, being its last moment to grace the hands of World Cup victors, as stipulated by Jules Remit himself in 1930, stating that any team to win the trophy 3 times would grant them exclusivity to keep the real Jules Remit trophy in perpetuity. From that day forward, the prize trophy was displayed on the 3rd floor at the Brazilian Football Confederation headquarters in Rio de Janeiro, taking its place behind bulletproof glass in a display cabinet. But with all things of great value, especially those of national treasures, just because it's bulletproof doesn't mean it's untouchable. Today, we are more accustomed with the 1974 World Cup Trophy edition, which was created to replace the Jules Remit trophy as it wandered into glamorous retirement in Brazil. And from 1974 to the current day, the spectacle new edition FIFA World Cup trophy is the one we will mostly identify and be more familiar with. It is also noted as one of the most valuable trophies in sports history, valued today at approximately $20 million.
He's approaching the post. It's a goal!
The caretakers of the first appearance, new edition 1974 World Cup trophy, West Germany, the spoils of which were most certainly well received and celebrated. In 1978, the tournament hosts Argentina take hold to host the World Cup. The 1978 competition was considered the most difficult World Cup to qualify for, with a staggering 95 countries, 107 teams, all shooting for 16 qualifying places, of which 2 of the places were automatically granted to the current trophy holders and the hosts. That's almost 7 nations competing for any one qualifying place. Certainly a ferocious challenge for any elite football team. Now to Spain in 1982, an expansion of the tournament featuring 24 teams, the first expansion since 1934. Italy claiming the spoils at the final match, the competition now gaining momentum in numbers, while the furiosity of the competition moved at a rapid speed. The new trophy now seated with a massive value, and fans showing up in force to support their favourite teams as they continue to compete for the treasure of the world-renowned solid gold World Cup trophy.
He's approaching the post. It's a goal!
However, the story of grandiose football trophies is about to take an unexpected turn. And while the World Cup efforts rage on and the world gears up for the next tournament set for 1986, back in Brazil, a major piece of history is about to be tested and put directly in the firing line, but not from bullets. On the 19th of December 1983, the Jules Remit trophy would be met by an unexpected crew of perpetrators, none of whom were likely holding guns, or indeed ever had the intent on firing any bullets, instead opting for the tool that bulletproof glass would least expect, a crowbar used to pry the wooden back off the cabinet of Brazil's national treasure, and for the second time in its history, the Jules Remit trophy finds itself at the mercy of cunning thieves, who entered the Brazilian CBF building, initially overpowering the night watchman, tying him up as they conducted their heist of the Brazilian national treasure. The mastermind of the heist, a simple banker and football club agent, going by the name Sergio Pereira Aires, also known as Sergio Peralta. The assailants, an ex-police officer, Francisco Rivera, aka Chico Barbudo, as well as decorator Jose Luis Vieira, aka Louis Bigode. The fourth man in the arsenal, a safecracker, Antonio Seta, also known as Broa, who is believed to have been approached during his planning of the crime by Peralta to ask for his aid in the heist. However, it is said that Antonio refused to take part out of patriotism and honouring the link to the unfortunate death of his brother, who had passed away due to a heart attack when Brazil won the climatic Jules Remit trophy for the third time. Regardless of the events that unfolded, Peralta and his gang of suspected thugs were taken into custody and arrested for association to the crime of theft related to the heist of the Jules Remit trophy. And just like that, December 19, 1983 would be the last time the Jules Remit trophy would ever see the beam of tungsten lighting which illuminated its glory in its display cabinet. While it was feared the trophy may have been melted down into gold bars, despite its bullion value only thought to be worth around £8,000, the vile act suspected to have been committed by Argentine gold dealer Juan Carlos Hernandez, who is suspected to have dismantled the Jules Remit trophy and had it smelted down. However, it is stated that Hernandez rejected the claims, denying his involvement. The aftermath of the heist triggered a desperate appeal for the Brazilian national treasure's return, though no solid evidence emerged to support the current claims, even after analysis of gold traces found at the gold dealer's premises, which were proven not to be a match.
He's approaching the post! It's a goal!
As it stands, one fact remained to potentially debunk the claims: the fact that the trophy was not actually made of solid gold, therefore leading to the conclusion that it could not be melted down to gold bars. As well, that the trophy would have held much more value if left intact, according to Pedro Berwinger, the Brazilian federal police officer who was at the forefront of the initial criminal investigation. Though, whether the evidence was indicative or not, Hernandez was also taken into custody and arrested, along with the other suspects. Now, despite the men being tried and convicted in absentia for the crime, when the suspects received their sentences, they all but fled. Though it wasn't long before their crimes would catch up with them, and one might suggest karma was pivotal in delivering such justice. Of the main men suspected and involved, they all came to find their own ends.
He's approaching the post! It's a goal!
In 1985, Antonio Seta, who denied his involvement from the outset, died in a car accident while he was making his way to the Central Police to testify for the crime. In 1989, Francisco Rivera was shot 7 times by 5 men in a bar, meeting his maker only several years after the events occurred. In 1998, the mastermind Sergio Pereira Aires was freed from jail, though he too later in 2003 died of a heart attack. In 1998, Luis Vieira was rearrested and then freed from jail.
What?
Also in 1998, Juan Carlos Hernandez, the gold dealer, who had purchased a luxury estate in the upper-class area of Humacia shortly after the theft, was eventually arrested at a bus station in Sao Paulo for drug trafficking after fleeing to France.
Bonjour.
Though he was freed from jail in 2005 and never served time for the conviction of receiving stolen goods in the Jules Remit trophy heist case. All the while, the evidence stacked up against the men, it still remained to shed little light as to the end of the whereabouts of the Jules Remit trophy. Some still believe it may have been melted down, while others speculate as to its new position of display, and with that, the memory of the treasure vanishes into thin air, likely never to emerge in daylight ever again. Leaving us, without doubt, that the case of the Jules Remit trophy is most certainly worthy of a lost and forgotten treasure. Well, as the heft of the strike from the crowbar that ripped the back off the trophy display cabinet pitters to a silent whisper, the tragic story of the cunning heist of one of Brazil's national treasures and a historic piece of football history fades into the heaving crowds that continue to rattle the stadium stands. The puzzling heist mystery leaves us with only small fragments of detail as the trail of clues freezes over. A piece of football history that reminds us of the origins of one of the world's most celebrated sports, as well as the elite athletes which curate its future. The end leaves only speculation and doubt as to the lost and forgotten Jules Remit trophy. Throughout this extraordinary sporting journey, we are again left with no more than a base to go off, as the only surviving piece recovered of the original trophy is believed to reside in the basement of the headquarters of one of the largest sports institutions on the planet. And while we question the actions of a group of thugs and try to piece it all together, the answers still remain scattered somewhere yet to be discovered. At the same time, we have been and remain mesmerized by the story. Join me next time for another episode of Lost and Forgotten Treasures. I'm your intrepid storyteller. Lost and Forgotten Treasures is an audiocast written and produced by me, Roger Adams, with the help, of course, from the internet, whose archives from multiple contributors have allowed me to research, interpret, and retell these stories. I hope you've enjoyed travelling with me through time, and whether you found some answers, liberated your ears, or merely just found this story intriguing, I hope you'll join me on the next. For now, keep searching for your treasure, whatever it may be. Until next time.
He's approaching the post.